Hey everyone, Elizabeth here. It's been a while, so I hope all is well. Actually, I guess it's probably been about a season at this point. The world is just as crazy as it was 4 months ago or 3 months ago whenever I last uploaded the video. So I haven't uploaded much lately, and I really wanted to do videos on Utah and Moab and certain things that I found and have discovered from listening to survivors. And I don't even know if I'll ever get to that at this point. What happened, so after I uploaded that video about the hummingbird, that was on a Wednesday. Let me step back. So I went to hike in Utah at the beginning of May, and at the end of the trip, I noticed that there was a lump that developed on my shin, on my right shin. And back in 2022, I had bursitis on that knee, and I kind of figured the bursitis was from a flare-up from doing all of my fitness classes were online. So, I mean, some days, you're teaching like 14 hours of exercise in like 3 days that your body just gets overworked. And so this lump developed, and anyways, I just was monitoring it, and I was like, this is not normal, but I kind of didn't really do anything about it. So the hummingbird situation happened on a Wednesday, and then on that following Monday and Tuesday, my calf started to go numb, and then I started getting a lot of tingling in my calf and then down in my foot. And at that point, with my background in exercise science, I was like, okay, this is not normal. Like, once you start getting sharp stabbing, shooting pain, or numbness and tingling, there's definitely something wrong. So I went to one of those like urgent ER clinics, and they're like, we need you to go to the emergency room in case this is a blood clot. And I was like, what? So anyways, I did. I went to like this mini ER room that's through the Zoom care system that's out here in the West Coast, and they found a blood clot in my right calf. And that was a shock and a surprise, and I was actually more upset because I knew the fate was blood thinner. And anyways, I was immediately put on Eliquis. I was so dehydrated, they couldn't even get an IV in me that does like a liquid, that is an IV for a blood thinner. Maybe that's a good thing that my situation was like that, because that shit's toxic poison. But I decided not to look up the ingredients of Eliquis because I knew that that I would be freaking out. And to remind you, like, I'm a vegetarian, holistic yoga and fitness instructor. I don't have jabs in me. I have nothing toxic. The only toxic thing that I take is ibuprofen once a month when that time comes. So hi there. So good, how are you? So that was a huge shock. So basically what I've gone through, that was on a Monday or Tuesday, and so I went to the ER on the Wednesday, and then as I got back from the ER later that afternoon, like completely devastated by this news, then I get an email that the hummingbird has been compassionately euthanized. So that was sad because I kind of had hope, and I also donated like $50 to help this hummingbird's treatment. And my sister works with animals, and she's like, well, I could have told you, they probably euthanized it right away and they just waited a week to email you. And she's like, I could have told you that was its fate. And I was like, well, why the fuck didn't you tell me that? I would have had some like witchy shit Reiki people come here and do some like Jesus healing on it or whatever like that. But so with those two things, with a hummingbird situation, I just, it was like, their email was, oh, well, the joint was broke and it's really hard to heal. And maybe that is the case, but there is always a flaw and a limitation in the medical industrial complex mind and with the intellectual model. There is not much hope, and not that's where I think spirituality is about hope and faith and trust that things can heal and regenerate itself. Like, the human and the animal body is so impressive and has these miraculous abilities to regenerate and reheal itself. And it is still, to this day, with us getting chronically poisoned daily by the crap that they spray in the sky and our water and our food, that it's amazing how all of us don't have cancer. That's how impressive and special our little temples are, and people don't see that. So anyways, that was really upsetting. So then, these doctors are like, well, you got to go to a hematologist and get a bunch of blood work done to see if you need to be on blood thinner for short term or long term. So, there's all these interview processes. They're like, have you had an injury? Are you pregnant? Did you have any trauma to the leg? And I'm like, I remember being at an estate sale and I had a Tupperware bin full of stuff and I stood up and it kind of swung back and hit my shin. But that was like the extent. I mean, on hiking, I didn't have any fall. I probably bumped into a rock. It's Utah. I do remember in Moab looking down at my shins when I got back to a hotel room, and in my head I was like, is this a stigmata? Because I had scratches on my right and my left shin that were exactly identical on both sides, but I don't really remember stepping or hitting anything. Like, I definitely did not run into a cactus. And that was interesting because sometimes, I just have all these like weird spiritual things that have always popped up in my life. And I was like, maybe this is spiritual. I mean, I loved the energy of the desert and Moab. I mean, it is undeniably amazing, but there definitely is something there. I mean, the whole state of Utah, I've started to learn a lot more about the Mormon church over the last few months, especially with videos done by Jesse. But it's like you look at the state of Utah and everything's like Devil's Garden and Devil's Gulch and this and that. And you can see these like demonic faces in the rocks. And, there's this whole thought that America isn't the America that we realize. After the whole Moab situation, I kind of started looking into these treasure hunters, because some of the stuff that they've pulled out in like the west slopes of the Rockies and or the Rocky Mountains and or in Utah and other things, it's definitely like Canaanite Aztec treasure. I don't think I did a video on that, but that would be something separate in itself. So anyways, at the beginning of September, I got my blood work back and I'm like, yay, everything came back normal, right? No genetic issues, no autoimmune, thyroid looks great, which is pretty consistent with my lifestyle of working in fitness and being vegetarian. Like, I do eat vegan, but I don't eat like the fake meats and cheeses. If I have vegan, think about like a bowl with like quinoa and sweet potato. I make my own like cilantro lime vinaigrette with apple cider vinegar, cilantro, garlic, lime, and oil. Like, these things are really easy to do and to eat whole foods. So I go to the hematologist and I'm really excited because I'm like, I'm getting off this poisonous shit. And so she's like, well, so here's the thing, because we don't have a root cause for your situation, we think you need to be on blood thinners for life. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God. So I asked about nattokinase because my father switched. My dad had a DVT and he let that go and it went to a pulmonary embolism and a stroke in his 60s. And he ended up switching off of warfarin or Coumadin. I think he was on warfarin because it has derivatives of rat poison in it. And his naturopath had him switch over to nattokinase, which nattokinase is nature's, it's fermented soybeans. So it's like an all natural blood thinner. I was like, God dang it. Like, now I'm like, I don't know what to do. So then I go home and I look up Eliquis and I look up the ingredients, and I purposefully avoided this because you can't mess around with things like blood clots and stuff. And I look up the ingredients and there's sodium lauryl sulfate, which I can't even, that shit makes me itch. Like, I've had skin issues. I mean, you can see like I have like a little patch. It's probably like an eczema patch up here. Like, I've had skin issues over the last couple year and a half, which rarely has never happened to me. And I thought it was maybe more from the crap that they spray in the sky. But, anyways, I had to use like Kirk's cast style soap. And and stuff, like nothing with parabens and SLS in it because it irritates my skin, like nothing intense on the detergent. And then it also has titanium dioxide, which is a carcinogen and contributes to cancer. So anyways, it once again, then I'm like, fuck this. I'm getting off a natto, and that just arrived yesterday. So I'm switching because now I need to figure out if I even need to have nattokinase. Taking it twice a day. I'm fine taking that, but it's just, it's a big expense. The bottles are now up to $120 for a 3-month supply. And this whole situation. So like, even with where I want to go back to this is that there is limitations with these medical doctors. This doctor was so nice, and because she's like, well, if you're older and you want to get pregnant, like you're already at a risk for clots, to get a clot while you're pregnant. And so she was offering like all these other suggestions of different drugs that you could use, and if you want to get pregnant, that's safer than Eliquis. And but she can't recommend nattokinase because there's not enough data on it, right? Which is not what the FDA wants. So the whole situation is really frustrating. And here's the thing, I look back at like my entire life history, my diet, and there's been some points where I've been vegan, some periods of my life where I've been vegetarian. I haven't eaten that fake meat shit in so long. That's where it's so processed and you don't know what the hell is in these things, that it's actually better or even easier to be vegetarian in that sense, because you're probably better off eating organic cheese, even though the cows are all pumped with shit, but like, you're better off probably eating that than eating some fake processed cheese that you really don't know all the ingredients that are in there. So once again, there is just a limitation and a flaw in that medical model. And here's the thing, these doctors are not easy to talk to because of the brainwashing aspect of their medical textbooks, on top of the media brainwashing people over the last few years. So here's the thing, I did not start to get issues until the COVID situation happened, and I was forced to exercise with a mask and a face shield. And then eventually it switched to an N95 mask. But when I worked at that Jewish retirement home, they made me and everybody take a daily rapid test on every single shift. At some point, they did switch it to where you could do it privately in the back room, which, we all know what, whatever. I'm not going to admit that. But like, for a while, it was the front desk would swab you, and then they'd come and get you if it was positive. And then on top, we had a weekly PCR test on a Tuesday. I kept a couple fucking swabs. I took a couple swabs and I've kept it because I've had people tell me, no, there's no such thing as ethylene oxide in it, EO. I'm like, the package says EO on it. It's goddamn, people, this is a sterilization method. And it's not that hard to figure out. All Rockefeller funded science or any sort of swab has to have some sort of, the Rockefeller science has some sort of like poison in it. And then these sterilized medical products have some form of chemical to keep it either dry, to not get moldy, something to keep it sterile. Okay. It's not that hard to figure out. I probably took at least 100 of those within my time frame of working there before they fired me because of the government mandate. And at some point when they started swabbing, I mean, the raw skin, the skin in my nose was raw. And then I would immediately get a headache and my lungs would start burning. It didn't happen at first, but after a long period of time. So the only thing I can think of is that the only toxic shit that I've been putting in myself was when I worked at the home in between 2020 through October of 2021, were those nasal swabs. on top of wearing some form of mask. That's the only toxic thing that has been inserted into my body outside of ibuprofen once a month. I don't know what the fuck is in some of those swabs. I don't know if there's nanotech, but Dr. Robert Young, who I've listened to, he did an interview with a guy in Australia, said, and this interview was back in like 2022, he said they've been seeing an increase of blood clots in vaxxed and unvaxxed people, that guy at least in Australia, and they can only think that a lot of this has to do with the graphene and the nanotech that's in a lot of the products. If you go on things like Telegram or BitChute, I mean, you can see that people are using those magnets. They're dissolving or bubbling the water, like San Pellegrino, they're bubbling the water and they're using that magnet and they're finding it in there. I actually have open tablets. I need to get one of those high-level magnets, but I have the tablets of Eliquis, which I do want to see if Eliquis has that shit in it. Because some of the side effects of Eliquis is also like spinal bleeds. So you're on a 30-day starter pack, and that's 20 milligrams a day. I will tell you, that was the scariest period I've ever had in my life. I'm sorry if you're a man and this grosses you out. I would stand up, and when you have a flow, I was like, I guess this is what it's like when your water breaks. It just poured out of you like a waterfall. And I wasn't quite at the emergency ER level, because they're like, well, you're filling up a tampon every hour. It needs to be every half an hour. And I'm like, I'm on the verge of like partially hemorrhaging. Now, it wasn't really that bad. It was not fun, but it wasn't as bad when I was on the normal 5 milligram doses a day. But in my head, I'm thinking, what are the side effects with nattokinase? If this shit works, are you going to be getting extremely heavy and painful periods on stuff like that? So in the middle of August, my in-laws had their 50th wedding anniversary, so we went out toward the Washington coast to Seabrook, and there was an art fair and some, like total like old school Washington, kind of hippie-ish chick, I'll just use that word hippie, Native American herbal woman was selling her products at the fair, and I was looking, and there was like a pain cream, and the ingredient said DMSO. So I was like, oh my God. I go, well, if you know what DMSO is, I'm assuming you know what's going on in this country. It was expensive. It was $60 for like a little thing. And I bought it. And I do have to use it a little more consistently. I was using it consistently when I was on vacation, and I have used it a couple times, but guess what? That lump on my shin that every medical doctor said, it's just going to go away. It's just going to go away. It was like 2.5 fucking months while being on a blood thinner. It didn't go away. And I kept asking, do I need to see an orthopedic? Do I need to go to a sport medicine doctor? Like, I don't know what the fuck this lump is on my shin. Guess what? DMSO is in that product along with a high level of CBD and other Native American herbs. And guess what? My bursitis lump is gone. Number one, that's gone. That went away. And then my lump is almost 100% completely gone. And DMSO is one of those things that I don't even know if YouTube's going to flack me on this, but it's been around since the 60s and the FDA banned it. But I'm going to tell you, I teach a fitness class at a Blackstone-owned property. This building is biotech pharma. So I have biotech people, they're startup companies. So I do believe genuinely these are more young scientists who believe in science, right? And they want to help the pharmaceutical companies or build these products that can help people. I don't think they're the evil ones. I think they're young, naive scientists. But, we do need that. We need good people to produce proper pharmaceuticals, or at least shit that's not going to kill us. But one of the girls, she followed up with me. She's like, oh, how are you doing? And then I told her she's like, how was your vacation? And I told her about this cream. I said, oh, it's got DMSO in it. And I go, I know you and I are probably in two completely different perspectives here, because you have a girl that works at a pharmaceutical company. And she was looking at me. She's like, oh my God. She's like, DMSO? And I said, yeah. She goes, oh, we use DMSO to dissolve things all the time for product testing. Guess what? DMSO has been known to dissolve clots. And And anyways, she's like, I never heard about it in terms of like healing or in terms of like internal use, but they use it to dissolve whatever thing or product they want in the petri dish to dissolve. And then they add other stuff to it to create their pharmaceutical. When you understand how the body works, especially from a perspective of holistic and natural health, you know that all these pharmaceuticals have some sort of plant-based medicine in it. Many weight loss pills that have been created have the properties that come from the skins of white potatoes. So just eat the fucking potato. Just don't fry it. Don't stick it in a deep fryer and make it fries. Boil it and put some butter in it, or you know what I mean? It's like all these certain things that we do to our natural product foods. Now, potatoes is a whole other conversation, but it's the things that we do to it that makes it bad. And yeah, so I'm going to end with that. Then on this journey, get this, YouTube flagged one of my, so while I was on vacation, YouTube sends me an email and says, oh, we're taking down one of your videos. Mind you, I did this video back in like 2018 or 2019. And the title of the video, I have to go look. Maybe I'll do a separate video on itself just to prove it. It's like, nature is the ultimate healer. That's the title of the video essentially, or you can heal yourself in nature. It was along those lines. They labeled it medical misinformation, but they did not flag or tag my channel because they're like, oh, you might not have known that this is medical misinformation. These people are pieces of shit. They are saying that going out in nature and healing yourself is medical misinformation. So this video has been communicated YouTube with entertainment purposes only. This is just my own testimony of going through a blood clot. So I do not recommend any medical advice to anybody watching this video. It is absolutely fucking stupid where society has gone through, and it is maddening. It is so, makes you so angry. So thank you for listening. I hope you all are well. So considering it's been in season, I guess, yeah, fall solstice is right around the corner. And I guess I did my last video just before summer solstice. So hope all is well, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.